Hello, everyone. I'm
Hi.
Alex.
Hi, I'm Mariela.
So,
We're going to talk today about boundaries.
yay! It was interesting. Mariella brought up this topic.
Well, you were talking about it.
Okay, I might have been
Before,
talking
too.
about it before, and then just like she wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, I guess we'll start with what is a boundary. So a boundary is a line, right? You can literally look up the definition.
You don't know?
In case people need to know, it's considered like a line,
Yeah.
like whether it's the
Right.
end of something or the beginning of something, and it's a defined line or limit. I think that's like actually like Webster Dictionary. I did. We also looked at some other things about boundaries just to see whatever, so that's a boundary. But we have so many areas in our life where we have boundaries, and sometimes we don't even know what we have for a boundary until it's crossed. And it can be pushed, it can make us uncomfortable, it can make us feel safe.
Yeah. And it can come from society, but it can also come from yourself, just your own boundaries and relationship boundaries, country boundaries.
And so today we're going to specifically talk about
What?
any kind of boundary?
Yeah.
Oh, any kind of boundary. Okay, I thought I'm asking if you want a specific boundary. So what made you want to talk about boundaries?
Oh, because it's just coming up lately. So I had the training about boundaries, and we were talking about boundaries during the weekend in my spiritual retreat, like determining which values you have, what you tolerate, what you don't tolerate, what can make you feel crazy, or what is unsafe to you. Yeah, but it also could be, sometimes you have different roles in life. So, do your personal boundaries, are they the same as your professional boundaries? Do you have boundaries with your friends the same as with your coworkers, things like that?
So, speaking personally, my boundaries are probably, I have pretty big very permeable boundaries probably. That's the area I can work on. I can work on that in friendships. I've been working on it with family over time, and work on it obviously in relationships, and professional boundaries are always shifting and changing depending on what they are and who we're working with and things like that. But they're really important to evaluate because we need to kind of understand what they are and maybe why we have them, because sometimes people will say, no, this is a boundary, and it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Why is that a boundary? Right?
Or the opposite. Like, why don't you have that boundary?
What are you saying?
Not you. But
yes.
like talking about safety, we go to people's houses, and there's some people that feel so comfortable and you don't think about things and you just do it and you're like, oh, maybe that's not so safe.
Or we think that things are really unsafe when really they aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what are some boundaries you've been exploring?
I was telling you yesterday, I don't remember what they were, I just remember one for now. But I remember when I was little, I used to be very confident and just talking about anything, whatever came into my mind. And I don't know what age I was when I decided to not be so confident in what I'm talking without really checking if what I'm saying is right. So then I started to double check with myself before talking, and then actually became a little bit introverted. Um, and one day after, then I was thinking of, yeah, why don't I talk as easily as when I was a little child? And I just had this memory, and I thought, yeah, it's good to be careful of what you talk, but not so much as like not being able to speak your mind when you need to. So that has been liberating. Yeah, I feel more comfortable talking now.
She does. Look at us here. we're live on the internet.
Yeah,
well, we're not live, but we're
like here.
we're live here.
We're alive.
Oh, mm-hmm.
But you know, that's one of the boundaries you can set in your head and not realize.
And when you brought this up, I remember thinking, and I said, boundaries can also look like limits, right? Like we set these like limiting beliefs, like these, right? So we create these limits like, well, I can't do that. Like I'm not able to do that, or that's not okay. And it's because we've created these beliefs or boundaries or limits. And a lot of times we don't know how it happened, or it has happened from past experience that usually has been painful. And that's why we've created it, to keep ourselves safe now.
Yeah.
So obviously, like when you were young, and this happens to all of us when we're young, we get all these kinds of messages that tell us how we're supposed to be and how if we're this way, we're going to receive love. And if we're not that way, we're not going to receive love, or we're not going to be safe.
Acceptance.
Yeah, so needing to be aware of where those boundaries are and things like that. I find for myself I don't know a boundary until it's been crossed, and then I recognize it. But it's also different with other people, and but I do in terms of those like limiting beliefs. Oh, I think we've got a shit ton of them.
Oh yeah, everybody.
But that's really cool. That's something I feel like I've been supportive in pushing you to.
She pushes so much. But I push you too.
She does push me, yes. But you have a lot to say and a lot to offer, so you should be saying it. And I don't understand why you don't. And then she starts bringing up, because English isn't her first language, you make like that's a thing.
Sometimes I say things that don't make sense. And probably if you have been watching the videos, you have seen one or two at least times when it didn't make sense.
Well, I speak English as my first language, and sometimes I don't make any sense.
Yeah, but I have a good excuse.
I don't. That's the thing.
You're destroying my safety net. Okay, so what are your values? Like maybe your first, second, third most important values?
I value integrity. That kind of flows with honesty. And self-reflection, maybe. I think those.
That's your two?
3.
The first one is like 1.
The first one blends into 2, but
yeah. Okay.
I think that, like right now in this moment, those are 3 I'm choosing.
So what happens? What do you feel when you see something outside of yourself that it doesn't have integrity? How do you feel? Like how can you tolerate a little bit?
I can tolerate it.
Like if you see a white lie, you know that that person is just making things up to. Or
you know what? I probably have very low tolerance to it. But if you think I have low tolerance to it, and I get judgmental. But I also try and step back and understand why that person might be doing it. Because people are going to lie or not follow through, or that's usually like you say you're going to do something and you don't do it. You don't show up the way you want to, or whatever, anyway. Or if you're dishonest. People are doing it for a reason because they're afraid. So I try and understand that, and then depending on the relationship is how I internalize it or look at it more.
Because as human beings, we deny things, we negate things, right? We don't want to see things that we don't like. And so how do you feel when, like maybe with your breath practices, you have been doing that, right? So you have been realizing of things that you have been hiding inside. And so with yourself, how do you feel?
So when I'm not being in integrity, I'm really hard on myself, and I try and then do it. Or I feel really guilty.
Yeah.
So that's something that's really hard for me. But then there's also needing to have compassion for myself, just like I try and do for others.
Yeah.
Because we're literally just here learning and trying to do our best. And
yeah, I feel horrible when I lie. I feel horrible. I feel like I need to go like in that second and tell everything. So it's very uncomfortable. Not that I don't hide things or things like that. My specialty is not talk about things if I don't want people to know.
She's good at that. She hides out in her desk.
What? I am open in my desk. Everybody sees what I do, what I don't do, if I'm looking on internet, if I'm talking on the phone. There's no privacy.
You hide from me there.
Because you're on the other side of the desk. You can't see me.
She hides in her corner.
Yeah. Yeah. When I don't want to talk to people, I would just pretend they're not there.
So one might say that there's a difference between a boundary and a comfort zone. I love the quote, life begins at the end of your comfort zone, because
You do that.
it's true though, like
And she likes to put me in my uncomfortable space.
I do.
If it's safe, right? Or it's safe from your perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From my perspective, but it might not be hers, but
No.
but I know she'll be safe.
Yeah.
But so then a lot of people will think, oh, I'm uncomfortable, this is a boundary, or I'm uncomfortable, this isn't okay. So there is a difference between a boundary and a comfort zone. And that's where I say the questioning is important. One thing I've always found really strange, and I noticed on that list you had, is a lot of people don't like to talk about money. That's a cultural thing, right? That's like a societal thing. So many people like refuse to talk about it. And I get that money is sensitive.
And like salaries.
Yeah.
You don't talk about salaries.
That's so weird because
That's the secret.
it has
Be
to, like,
careful,
money
maybe
and power.
people will be envious of you.
That's their issue.
I know. That's one of the things.
Or they'll feel sorry for me.
Or sorry for you feel sorry for yourself.
But
we have the same position and she earns more.
no, I don't.
No, I'm just, it's an example of somebody that we don't know.
Yes. So money is one of those things where it's like power, right? Money is power in our world. And so it can be really touchy for people. And that's one I don't understand. And maybe because I haven't been on the end of having more and having people maybe question me. I'm usually, but I'm so curious, like, what do people do and how much money do they make? And then what do they do with that money? I know what I do with my money. Like, I just find it so interesting. Yeah.
No,
and
you in general are very open from my perspective.
But then the question is, so for a lot of people, this is a boundary.
In general.
And they're uncomfortable and they don't like it. And it's like, whoa, do you ever question that? Like, why did that start in the first place? Why is this a boundary for you? Or why is this a concern? So that's one I find really interesting. On this list we were looking at past. The past is a boundary.
Past life. Or past lives.
That whatever has happened in the past is in the past and you don't have to disclose it. And of course you don't, right? That's what it said. The past is the past.
That's what it says.
But my question is, what are you hiding? What are you hiding?
Why?
And I get that we have painful pieces. Oh, sorry. We have painful pieces, and we should only share that with people we trust, because that makes us, in our world, unfortunately, we can't trust everyone.
No, and it could be something that makes you very vulnerable, right?
Mm-hmm. So, keeping that stuff, with yourself in a safe place makes sense. But if you're in a trusting relationship or you think it's a trusting relationship and you're not sharing something, again, that's each person's thing. But in basic general history stuff, I'm always like, why?
And sometimes those things that you feel that you don't want to touch are the ones that you should explore, so that you can have a better life. Because those are the things that are in the unconscious.
Or subconscious, yeah.
Or conscious.
Both. Right? They're in our unconscious and subconscious.
I was just having a hard time pronouncing it.
Sorry.
Subconscious. And they are limiting your life. And sometimes you don't realize. Once they are gone, then you're free.
Yeah, and a lot of times those things we don't want to talk about or that create those boundaries that kind of came out of nowhere or you're not quite sure, they usually come from a place of hurt or shame. Like shame is that huge one. And you feel embarrassed. Or there's something wrong with you or whatever, so you put up these walls so people can't see it and they'll judge you or...
Yeah, and it's actually a judgment of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because probably if you talk about it with somebody else, they won't think that it's bad.
Now, some people might.
Yeah.
Some people be like, whoa, and they'll kind of... I feel like that's been my life sometimes. People feel bad for me, but...
Yeah, or judgy.
Or judgy, yeah.
Yeah, like, why did
and
you
I don't
do
care.
That? Why didn't you say something? Like, I'm already thinking that. I want some comfort. Thank you.
So do you have an example of a boundary you do have? Some boundaries you have?
Boundaries. I feel like I have a keep the peace boundary. I have to keep the peace. Have you noticed?
So no conflict.
There is conflict all the time. And I really enjoy some conflict. Like arguing about polemic.
She does like to argue sometimes. It gets a little intense. It depends on our moon cycle, let me tell you.
Oh, that's right. But luckily we are understanding the moon cycle. So it's fine most of the time. We will feel like, oh, it's time to go back and do something else.
Yes, and some chocolate.
Sometimes, yeah, chocolate is good. Yeah, so I do like conflict, but like if I feel like people are getting like, I don't know, it's very, very intense. Like with politics, you know, the ideologies, socialism versus, what is the other one? Conservatism? Capitalism. Oh my gosh. Like there's some people that go to the extreme, then I'm like, let's change the subject.
So when conflict gets too high, you get uncomfortable and you try and stop.
And you don't?
Hell yeah, no, this is mine and hers, same. I do the same thing. If I'm not diving into that with anger and passion, then I'm retreating and trying to change the subject. Because when people get to a point when when they're so reactive, when people are reactive and can no longer hear each other, there is no point in continuing that discussion because they can't hear each other. And it can turn into a point where it's actually like they're hurtful and saying things that aren't really appropriate to each other and trying to force each other to see each other's side. So there's no point in having that argument. So I would try and put an end to it as well. I'm a peacekeeper as well. We're peacekeepers. Hence, we're in the role that we are in.
And that's true.
So, wrapping up boundaries.
Yep.
Take it away,
There's
Mariela.
so much to say about boundaries. I'm not done. And I want to keep talking, but it's time to end.
We have a boundary of time.
That's right.
And so, we'd love to hear if there is a boundary or a value that you have how does it feel when you don't see that happening outside yourself? Or is there a boundary that you've been curious about within yourself that you're exploring? It'd be awesome to hear about it, hear how you're reflecting on those things as me and Mariela continue to reflect on our own.
Yes.
So have a wonderful day and we'll see you again soon.
Yep. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.